Let's look at what units of measure can be used for estimating stories. So we've mentioned before that stories in the backlog will have different levels of granularity. Stories at the bottom of the backlog will have less detail, while those on the top will have more detail. And so it makes sense that stories should also be estimated at different levels of granularity. And teams can decide what unit of measure they want to adopt. So here are some of the more common options when estimating stories. So the first option is to use man days, and this refers to a working day of effort. And the second option that some teams choose to use is using t-shirt sizes. So a t-shirt size, as you know, would range from small, medium, large to extra large, and these are also used to estimate stories. And they're appropriate if you want to do high-level estimations. That is, if you have a lot of ambiguity in the details and don't want to spend too much time in estimating stories at a granular level. And then finally, we have story points. So what are story points and why do we use them for estimating? The software industry effectively decided that using conventional measures of time, that is days and hours, doesn't really work well in software development. So they invented a new measure and called it a story point. And what a story point is a relative unit of measure that is only meaningful to a specific team. That is, the raw values assigned are unimportant, and what is actually important are the relative values. So a story that is assigned a 2 point should always be twice as much as a story that is assigned a 1. And it should be 2/3 the size of a story assigned a 3. But the team could use 1, 2, and 3, or they could use 100, 200, or 300, or 1 million, 2 million, and 3 million when they assign the actual story points. And that's because it's the ratios and not the actual numbers that matter. And because story points represent the effort to develop a story, a team's estimate has to consider everything that can affect that effort. And that includes the amount of work to do, the complexity of the work, and any risk or uncertainty when doing the work. So in summary, a story point is simply a function of volume, risk, and complexity of the story. But why do we use story points instead of time? Well, because firstly, developers in a team have different skill levels, and a piece of work may take one developer 1 hour, but another developer may take 5 hours. And the nature of Scrum is such that during estimation, we don't really know which developer will pick up or work on that story. So story points are a measure that is independent of the skill or experience level of individual team members. Now, the second reason for using story points is that it prevents teams from comparing performance and creating what is often an unhealthy competitive culture. Once teams start comparing their velocity, then this can result in teams engaging in undesirable behaviors, such as overestimating stories to get ahead of other teams. With story points, velocity between teams become harder to measure and encourages a more healthier culture. Okay, so that's enough theory for now. In the next lesson, we will look at the practical side of how teams go about doing story point estimation. And then shortly after, we will do a hands-on practical exercise to simulate a real-world sprint planning session. I'll see you soon.